Welcome, everyone. I'm Stephen Garvey, founder, leader of National Citizens Alliance, and I'm pleased to have with me tonight Adrien Bordage, NCA Regional Maritimes Coordinator. And thank you for joining us tonight, Adrien.
Thank you.
And we have an important discussion we're going to do tonight. This is only an introduction, and we will do more on this subject, but it's entitled Nationalism versus Globalism. So we're gonna look at nationalism, what it means. We're going to talk about the NCA, how it applies to nationalism, and then we're going to look at globalism and how it's impacting Canada, our people, our way of life. Before I begin, I just want to bring up some NCA news. Today we received notifications from Elections Canada that our registration package was accepted, which means that they will now start confirming our registration package vis-a-vis our declaration forms. So that means there will be confirmation forms mailed out to everyone who filled out declaration forms for us. It is imperative that you complete the confirmation form and mail it back to Elections Canada in the stamp addressed envelope provided. If you don't do this, your declaration form will not count. So we're encouraging everyone who filled those forms out to do it right away. Don't put it aside and get back to it, because it is time sensitive. It's just a one-page form, your name and address. Did you sign the declaration form? Tick yes, sign it, put it in an envelope, mail it back to Elections Canada. We will do more on this. Moreover, if you have not yet mailed in a declaration form, we encourage you to do so. And we will provide a link in this feed tonight as to how you can do that. Otherwise, send us an email at info@nationalcitizensalliance.ca, or you can call us directly at 1-833-822-8330. And remember, we are dependent on the Canadian people. So we're encouraging everyone who supports us to donate even $1, $5 to us, so we can get our message out. We rely on donations. That is a fact, and that's how it should be. So you can do that on our website. There's a donation tab, part of our menu. Just go there, and like I said, even $1 helps us. And obviously donate within your means as you see fit. And we're going to get to this important discussion tonight, Adrien. And I think to start off, everyone, we need to define the terms nationalism and globalism. So I'm going to turn to you now, Adrien, and please enlighten us.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks to the internet, and using the online dictionaries, I'll just quote a few samples. The Cambridge Dictionary Online the meaning of globalism. The Cambridge Dictionary Online is, quote, the idea that events in one country cannot be separated from those in another, and that economic and foreign policy should be planned in an international way. From the Merriam-Webster Dictionary, quote, a national policy of treating the whole world as a proper sphere for political influence. And then from the American Heritage Dictionary Online, a national geopolitical policy in which the entire world is regarded as the appropriate sphere for a state's influence. So you can see there's little variances in the from one dictionary to the next, but generally the idea is the same, in that globalism is simply the erasing of national borders, and the free movement of people, almost like open border policy, and that's that. I think in a utopian type world, if all cultures, all people shared the same beliefs, even same religion, same values and ideals, I think globalism would be fine. Perhaps even desirable. But our world is not like that. There is a reason that we have different nations and that we need borders, because cultures clash. So that's pretty much that's my take on it.
Yeah,
and I should point out.
Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, no, I was just. I was just going to say too that sometimes there's a little bit of a confusion between globalism and globalization. The globalization is probably, to me, is just kind of like the extension of globalism. Globalism is the core of the idea of this one world order, so to speak. Whereas globalization, I think, is kind of like the byproduct of globalism. Like the Cambridge Dictionary online, and the meaning of globalization, it says the increase of trade around the world, especially by large companies producing and trading goods in many different countries. Just as an example of using that, we must, like if you were to use that in context, we must take advantage of the increased globalization of the commodity trading business. So that would be the use of globalization in a sentence.
Yeah. So it's basically open borders, everyone. It's definitely anti-national, Adrien.
Yes.
It's looking at the world from a global perspective. It's operating as a global rather than a national entity. And also, the development of social, cultural, technological, economic networks transcend national boundaries. Globalized citizen, globalist village. That's what's happening to Canada, Adrien. And
Yes.
and like you said, these are large companies producing, trading goods in many different countries. Then we get these massive, big trade deals that they're doing, right? And that these establishment parties support, and including that globalist Maxime Bernier, who's an outright globalist. He says he supports aggressive free trade. So does these cronies in the Liberal Party and Conservatives. Aggressive free trade has nothing to do with conservative values. It has nothing to do with national values. It's all globalist values. These are globalists. That's what they are. Don't be afraid of saying it. And don't be fooled. Bernier is a globalist to the minute core. And if you're supporting him, you're supporting the globalist agenda. That's it. That's a fact, Adrien.
Exactly. And it's, in an ideal world, globalism would be fine. But we don't live in an ideal world. Countries, cultures clash. A little bit of diversity, a little bit of immigration is fine. But these mass movements of people and this diversity, this extreme diversity is hurting our country. As it's already done in many of the Western European countries. All a person has got to do is just look east, look to the Western European countries, France, Germany, Sweden, Britain. All of these countries over there have they've done the immigration experimentation, and it's tearing those countries apart. Many of them are on the verge of civil war, in my mind.
Exactly.
They're to that point where, thankfully the indigenous population of those host countries still is, they still have the majority of people, but they're losing it very, very quickly, and people are finally starting to wake up. Hopefully, it's not too late, but hopefully, but they're starting to wake up to the how to the fact that they're losing their culture, they're losing their country.
Exactly.
Exactly like you said. They're becoming a globalist village.
Yeah, exactly. And look at this first definition, everyone. Economic and foreign policy should be planned in an international way. Well, guess what? Look at the foreign aid flowing out of the country. Look at the foreign aid flowing out of the country under Harper, any other regime post Harper. Look under Justin Trudeau. This is just globalism, everyone. That's all it is. The economic policies of this globalist Burnay, of these establishment parties, is globalist. They talk about free trade. They talk about aggressive free trade, big trade deals like TPP, which was just passed on January 23rd of this year. This is all about big banks, multinational corporations, big business, getting unfair advantage, taking advantage of sweatshops in Asia where they're paying people $1 a day. There's very little government intrusion, very little environmental regulation. This has nothing to do with you, the Canadian people. So we're saying, wake up, smell the truth. It's right in front of your faces, everyone. These globalists in Ottawa have sold us out. This is all about big business. This is all about multinational corporations. The United Nations. Big international banks. That's what it's about. So you got to wake up. So let's turn to nationalism now, Adrien.
Yes. Okay, let's see if I can... meaning of nationalism is... the Cambridge Dictionary, a nation's wish and attempt to be politically independent, a great or too great love of your country. Merriam-Webster's dictionary calls it loyalty and devotion to a nation, especially a sense of national consciousness, exalting one nation above all others and placing primary emphasis on promotion of its culture and interests as opposed to those of other nations or supranational national groups. And then finally, the American Heritage Dictionary calls it devotion, especially excessive or undiscriminating devotion to the interests or culture of a particular nation state. The belief that nations will benefit from acting independently rather than collectively, emphasizing national rather than international goals. And the belief that a particular culture or ethnic group constitutes a distinct people deserving of political self-determination.
Excellent stuff. So you see, everyone, this is about sovereignty, in our case, Canadian sovereignty, our independence as a people and a country. It's about patriotism, love for your country, loyalty, devotion to our country, Canada. That's what nationalism is. And a sense of national consciousness, exalting our nation as Canadians above all others. And placing primary emphasis on promotion of our Canadian cultural and interest, as opposed to those of other nations. So this is the antithesis, Adrien, of globalism.
Yes, yeah.
So you see that, everyone. Nationalism is not a boogeyman. It's actually a good thing. It's about having pride in your country. It's about having devotion to your country. It's about wanting independence for your country, standing up for its sovereignty. What is bad with that, everyone? What is bad with that?
Nothing wrong with that at all. There's nothing wrong with loving your country as it was and as it always should be.
Yeah, and exactly.
Yeah, go ahead there, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to bring in our discussion last night, and this is a good way, because these globalists in Ottawa, including that Maxime Bernier, who's a bankster lawyer, they support aggressive free trade. But when you're a nationalist, everyone, when you're a nationalist, you want some tariffs to protect what you're producing. Otherwise, bigger entities like the U.S. or economies like in Asia will eat up our industries, take our manufacturing jobs, take our jobs. So that's why you would have tariffs. And this was a policy of Sir John A. Macdonald, his national trade policy. But we wouldn't have tariffs on what we're not producing, because our businesses, our consumers will want those goods. So we're not gonna put tariffs on them. We want them to come in as cheap as possible, but we're gonna protect our industries. Otherwise, we're gonna lose them to bigger entities, economies that are charging $1 a day, 10 cents a day.
It's happening here.
You know, when these globalists like Bordage say no tariffs, aggressive free trade, he's talking for the big banks. He's talking for these multinational corporations. He's not talking for you, the Canadian people. And when he says this is true conservative values, he is lying to you. Yeah. Conservative values has nothing to do with aggressive free trade. Nothing. That's right. Whatsoever. National values have nothing to do with that. When you have aggressive free trade, that is globalist values. Just remember that. Don't get played. Don't get manipulated. Don't allow other people to tell you what to think like that.
I think it's so important. People have to do their own research. Don't go by just like you don't take as gospel everything that you read or hear on the news. You got to do your own research, and I've learned this the hard way because I used to be in the same boat where I used to just kind of go along with the flow and believe what I hear on the news or what everybody else is saying or what everybody else is saying on the street. Do your own research. Sure. Dig deeper, and find out the underlying truths of the lies that you're being told. Really. Yeah. Exactly. Like now when I listen to the news, I will try to take most of it with a grain of salt and do my own research. Search everywhere. The internet is great. Thankfully, thankfully for the internet, we can look at many other different sources of news, rather than the mainstream news. And now here, like I'm in the Maritimes, in New Brunswick, and here in the Maritimes is probably, we're I call it liberal la la land, because it's probably about 70% liberal and maybe 25% PC, and the rest NDP, I guess. And I never used to, like before I ever paid attention to any politics, which is probably only about 2-3 years ago that I had any interest in politics. I mean, I was a simple man. I grew up, I worked in labor all my life. I had no idea of what was going on in the political scheme until I started watching the news about all these increasing terrorist attacks across the world. That's what got me thinking about it. That's what got me watching a little more closely and thinking a little bit more about our political environment. And boys, I tell you, it opened my eyes. Like when I started looking deeper into it. Excuse me. And thankfully you reached out to me about a year ago. I guess now it was about October last year. You reached out to me, and I knew a little bit about you, but not very much. But I knew enough that when you called me, it was something special, because I knew that you were somebody that had a lot of knowledge in the political world. And boys, I was so happy to get involved with NCA, and now I'm just I'm very excited about it because. I'm excited because I can see that some of the other political entities in Canada, the establishment parties, PCs, Liberals, NDPs, they're scared of us. They can, this is why they are doing things like when we try to book conference rooms, suddenly, for some reason, we get canceled. And gee, I wonder why that would be. So this is for me. For me, though, it means that we're heading in the right direction. When we have people attacking us on the streets, in other different ways, it means that they're scared of our message because they know that it's true, but they just don't want to admit it.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Oh.
So people got to
I'll check.
look a little further, past the mainstream news. Yeah. Steve?
Yeah.
Still there? Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, I guess we had a little disruption there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just.
But anyway.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm very excited. I know many of you are probably already aware, but if not, we're having our national convention, annual convention coming up in the Halifax area, Nova Scotia, coming up in mid-November, November 10. And very excited about that. I'm so happy to be organizing that, and we need your support. For anybody in that area, we need you to attend, to listen to the message. We've got some great speakers lined up, and including, of course, Stephen and others. We're hoping for also Dr. Ricardo Duchesne, author of the book Canada in Decay, among others. And I'm really looking forward to that. Also, before that, October 28th, we have our little conference in St. John, New Brunswick. It's where I was born. I'm happy to. It's just about a 2-hour drive south of where I am now in the Moncton area, but I'm happy to on October 28th there to have have a smaller conference there, and we've got people that are reserving seats. So for anybody that's interested in going to one of these conferences, please go to our website. And sign up, register, and we'll give you the details. We're really looking forward to. One of those people. I like to meet people. Talking to people online is great, but I like to do it live if possible. Meet people.
Excellent stuff, and yeah, definitely. The mini conference in St. John coming up on October 28th, and the national convention on November 10th. You can see the event postings on our Facebook page at National Citizens Alliance. Also on our main website at nationalcitizensalliance.ca. You'll see it on the homepage there under latest news. I'm gonna Adrien, I'd like to dig deeper into nationalism now, and
yes.
I just want to bring everyone informed on where the National Citizens Alliance stands on nationalism. We view ourselves as a mix of what's called civic nationalism and ethnic nationalism. And actually, at pre-Confederation, Canada was a mix. Actually, Canada was primarily ethnic nationalism and with a mix of civic, and actually you would say it was probably more civic, and I'm going to give examples. Civic nationalism refers to equal rights bearing for citizens. So citizens have equal rights, and they have equality of opportunity. They're all united in their patriotic attachment to the particular country, in this case, Canada. They share similar political practices and values. And I'll give you some examples of it. I believe pre-Confederation was an example of civic nationalism, where we had a lot of Europeans coming to Canada, Germans, French, English, Irish, Scottish, Italian, and they were all coexisting in a civic nationalism. They shared the same values. They shared patriotism for Canada, and they had equal rights. And
they got along. And they got along. That was the thing, right?
Yeah. Another example is in 18th century, the British state. That was a mix of Welsh, Scottish, and Irish coming together. And that's another example of civic nationalism. I'm going to turn now to ethnic nationalism. And that's where nationhood is defined by language, religion, customs. So you can argue Canada pre-Confederation was a form of ethnic nationalism because we had the dominance of Christianity. We had language, French and English. And there was defined customs of how people functioned. And obviously the First Nations were there too. They were much smaller. Also, the important thing in ethnic nationalism is that the nation creates a state. Not the state creating the nation. So it means the people create the state. And what you see in globalism is these globalists, the 1%, are creating the state of Canada. It's the reverse of nationalism. That's what's happening. It's the reverse. Under nationalism, we, the people, create the state. And
that's very important.
Yeah, another thing about ethnic nationalism, unity comes from pre-existing ethnicity. It's the glue that binds the communities and the country. And so when it comes to National Citizens Alliance, we have a blend of civic and ethnic nationalism. We support equality of citizens, equality of rights. We want all citizens to be patriotic to their country. And we share, that's what we want. We want shared political practices and values. At the same time, the National Citizens Alliance believes that Euro-Canadians who founded and created Canada in pre-Confederation should be the dominant majority population of Canada. And that's
definitely.
And that's where a bit of ethnic nationalism comes in. We do not believe that we should be, Canada should not be made up of people from all over the world with similar values, right?
Yes. Yep.
We don't believe that because we believe this country is inherently Euro-Canadian coupled with First Nations. And that is what's created Canada. The institutions, our legal system, our educational system. It's the whole basis for Canada. And so that's what we stand by. That's why in our immigration policy, we want a temporary pause, substantial reduction, and we want to make sure Euro-Canadians remain the majority of the population of Canada. So we are a mix of civic and ethnic nationalism. We have no issue with a certain percentage of immigrants coming in who are not Euro-Canadians. As long as they share our values, they share our patriotic attachment, and also that they they integrate, they become part of who we are as Canadians. So we're a mix, Adrien, of civic and ethnic nationalism, and but you can see what's going on, everyone. They are eroding our ethnic glue that connects us all. Through this mass immigration, they're bringing people from cultures, ethnicities that do not share our values. they're completely foreign in terms of ethnicity. And what the globalists are doing, like Bernay, that globalist stooge, what they're doing is they want to bring people in, and it's based on the premise of ethnic relativity. That's what globalists like Bernay believe. They won't say it in public, but that's what they believe. They believe in ethnic relativity. They support mass immigration of 250,000 plus. Right? So these globalists, they want the reverse of what nationalism is. They're going to divide us. They're going to destroy our ethnic bonds. They're gonna wreak havoc on our values because they're bringing in people who do not share the same values. So Canada, that's why we say Canada is in crisis right now. With this mass immigration, and it's only going to increase as long as these crony globalists in Ottawa stay in power, Canada is just going to continue down the path of this globalist agenda, which is leading eventually to a post-national globalist village. Canada, as we know it, will cease to exist. Euro-Canadians will be less than 20% of the population of Canada. So
that's scary.
I hope that's clear where the National Citizens Alliance stands. We're not just civic, but we have a form of ethnic nationalism as well.
That's correct.
We kind of blend the two. We blend the two because we're not against immigrants coming here and integrating in small numbers. We're not against that. If they can contribute to our society, integrate, share our values, share our patriotism, right? And have similar ethnicity, like blend in, we don't have an issue with that. But if they're not blending in, we don't want them here.
No, that's exactly that's what people have to think about, is that it's okay to have a little bit of immigration, a little bit of culture mixing is okay, but exactly if they don't want to accept our values, we don't need them. If they don't want to accept our follow our laws, our beliefs, like our values, I guess, then that's not right. And it's we don't need people to come and essentially they're taking over. I never used to see it when I was younger, but boys now, like especially here in the Maritimes, we don't have large populated areas like in Ontario, Ontario, Quebec, and so forth. Like the big metropolitan cities. But like when I grew up in the Maritimes, I think I could probably count on one hand maybe the number of people that I would have seen or known that were of I guess of a different race or something. But I've noticed just over the past probably 10, 20 years, there's been a great increase of immigrants from other countries.
Yeah.
And I went to Ottawa when I went to the rally with you in Ottawa. That was an eye-opener. I couldn't believe it. Me and you sitting on the bus, and we took the bus probably about a half dozen times, and every time we were about the people that were clearly of Canadian origin were about maybe 10% of the bus. 80 to 90% were immigrants, and so I think it's really noticeable in the big cities, the metropolitan cities, and I'm a third or fourth generation Canadian. I've been able to trace my ancestry back to the western part of France. So my ancestors were francophones that came across, and I'm sure that they were. Some of them were probably involved. Some of them were probably those pioneers, settlers that started to create what Canada is now. And I'm very, very worried to see, what's happening now with this globalization or this globalism. What it's doing to our country, as well as these other countries.
Yeah.
It's just not going to work. As I stated before, in an ideal world, if all cultures, if all countries shared the same beliefs, ideals, yeah, globalism would be fine. But we don't live in that kind of world,
No.
and it's very scary. People got to wake up. Take a look around you. Do your own research into globalism and mass immigration. Stephen had said earlier, aggressive trade, by the big corporations and all that. Just look a little deeper into it. Do your own research. Excuse me, and you'll see what's really going on.
Exactly. And I'm just going to dig a little deeper into globalism, because you can look at different tentacles of the globalism. There's economic globalism, there's social globalism, there's cultural globalism, there's environmental globalism, and there's more, but I'm going to touch on those four. So we've already talked about economic globalism, and that's where you have aggressive free trade, like this Bordage guy supports. It's dealing with TPP, these big globalist trade deals that support supported by the big banks, big business, multinational corporations, and that's what that's all about. That has nothing to do with standing up for Canada, national values, conservative values at all. That is globalist values. This so-called aggressive free trade, even so-called free trade, that is globalism. That is globalism, everyone. Look it up. You are being lied to. When that Bordage guy says he's representing true conservative values, he is lying right to your face, and he's laughing at you because he thinks you're so stupid. And anyone who believes him is stupid. They need to get their head checked.
Yeah. Because
it's just not reality. It's like saying, when it's light out, it's dark. It just doesn't make sense. Aggressive free trade is globalist values. Period. That's it. End of discussion. But that's economic globalism. That's what it pushes. Also, economic globalism would push also all the foreign aid you see going out of the country, working with the United Nations like Harper did, Trudeau did, and previous governments do. That's part of economic globalism. So globalism is concerned about the global world order. Its focus is not Canada and the Canadian people. That's why you see all this going on. Social globalism, that's about, again, the globalist village, diversity is strength, pushing diversity of society, having mosque everywhere, having, all kinds of different ways people socialize. That's what's also social values. That's also dealing with transgender, pushing transgender identity in schools.
All the political correctness and all that.
Yeah, that's all political correctness agenda. That's all social globalism.
Yeah.
And when you get to cultural globalism, that's when you deal with multiculturalism, extreme multiculturalism, and that's the globalist agenda there. That's what they're pushing. And you can see this is just explains exactly what's going on in Canada, right? It's been going on aggressively since Pierre Trudeau, and through all the conservative governments, Harper, all of them were pushing multiculturalism. Actually, it was Mulroney, one of the supreme globalists of them all, who passed the Canadian Multiculturalism Act, which encourages the government to promote foreign cultures in Canada. And then we get to environmental globalism. And that's about climate change and being worried about climate change in developing countries, looking at the world, again, this global world and
global warming.
Yes,
global warming,
all that is part of that, and all the money flowing out to these less developed countries. Even under Harper sent over $1 billion to developing countries to fight climate change, right?
And people, it's like the carbon tax. It's just one of the byproducts of this the environmental this globalism, environmental globalism.
Yeah.
My view is that the global warming, the environmental change, that it's a hoax.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Well, no, I mean, yes, we do need to be careful with our our fossil fuels, things like that there. But when they talk about the Earth, the global warming, and I've looked into this quite a bit, and the Earth throughout the ages goes through cooling and warming phases over long periods of time, and we're just simply going probably at the cusp of one of these changes from like an ice age to a warming period. So yes, some of the numbers do show that that the Earth is a little bit warmer, but really not very much.
Okay, but that's another issue. We'll get to that another day. At the end of the day, we want to rescind the carbon tax. We believe that Canada is due to its vast carbon sinks, that we are carbon neutral, and that's something we would rescind. But that's another issue, Adrien. Let's leave that for another day. So you get an idea of the globalism going on in our country, everyone, and it's indisputable. It's indisputable that it's going on. This has nothing to do with conservative values, liberal values, libertarian values, national values. This is all about globalist values, big banks, multinational corporations, UN entities, global world order, and these entrenched cronies in Ottawa are all sold out to that. And that's a fact.
Exactly.
We are running against them. So you have a choice. You can keep supporting these globalists, because that's what they are, or you can support a true national party like National Citizens Alliance. We
put Canadian first.
We are civic, ethnic nationalists. That's what we are. And we're not against trade, but again, from a national standpoint, we believe that trade should be in the best interest of our people. Therefore, we support smart, fair trade. We believe that some tariffs are good, like Sir John A. Macdonald believed, because they will protect our industries where we're producing, or our there could be consumer products that we're producing as a country. But we do not believe tariffs should be where we're not producing. So we would want the cheapest goods coming in here where we're not producing, but we will protect our industries. And this is something Trump even says.
Yes, yeah.
He brags about the tariffs because he's protecting American industry, American jobs. And we have the same philosophy. We want to protect Canadian industries and Canadian jobs. And that's why we can never support a person like Bernier, who believes in aggressive free trade and no tariffs.
And not just Bernier.
No, not just him, but him and conservatives, establishment, crony conservatives, liberals, NDP, they all support that.
Yeah, all.
We oppose that. That is globalist. It's not putting our people first. So
That's right.
I think that's pretty
And
clear.
and there's nothing wrong with us wanting to put Canadians first. You know, we have to look after our Canadians first. I mean, you know, we have people that have served this country. We have veterans, you know, that need to be looked after. And yet we have foreign nationals coming into this country, immigrants, and they're being treated, you know, like royalty compared to our veterans. It's shameful. You know, when I read, you know, I read stories about things like that happening here in Canada. Why? You know, it's and again, it's like you said, Steve. It was a very good analogy that, you know, they're the tentacles of the globalism.
Exactly.
They reach far and wide.
Exactly.
Far and wide.
Exactly. Hopefully this discussion tonight is informative. It's just an introduction. We're going to dig deeper, but hopefully it gets you thinking in the right way, and you can make the best decisions for you and your family. And we want to thank you for joining us tonight. And
Yes, please support us. Please support us. Come to our convention, our conference. You won't be disappointed.
Exactly. So there's a mini convention, as mentioned, on October 28th in St. John, New Brunswick. And then we're holding our convention in Halifax on November 10th. And you can purchase tickets for a nominal price on our website, nationalcitizensalliance.ca. And or you could do it on our Facebook, National Citizens Alliance. And both Adrien and I would like to thank you for joining us tonight. And if you like our message tonight, please share it so we can reach more people. And we want to wish everyone the best. And you know, it's an exciting journey we are on. We encourage as many Canadians as possible to hop on board, because it's all about you. We are nothing without your support. Please remember that. We need your support.
Yes, we want to be there in 2019. We want to be on the ballot.
We will be there. We will be on the ballot. But,
yes.
but anyways, I want to thank you all for joining us. Please have a good night.